Bueno, voy al botón que no toca. Muchas gracias, Patricia, por lo que nos ha contado y por lo que ha empezado ya a vislumbrar cuáles serían prioridades o futuros de investigación en enfermería en los próximos años, de lo que discutiremos en la segunda parte de esta sesión. A continuación, la persona que nos va a presentar lo que ha hecho su institución y lo que se han hecho durante estos 20 años en la investigación a través de la sigma Theta Tau es Hester Klopper. Ella ha sido directora ejecutiva de Fundisa, que es el Foro de Decanos Universitarios de Enfermería de Sudáfrica, y presidenta de la sigma Theta Tau Internacional desde el 2013 hasta el 2015. Es también profesora extraordinaria de la Universidad del Noreste y de la Universidad del Western Cape, donde ha sido decana. Es la única sudafricana de la Academia Americana de Enfermería. El 23 de julio de este año ha sido honrada en el Salón Internacional de la Excelencia en la Investigación de la sigma Theta Tau por su contribución internacional en la investigación en cuidados, y en septiembre recibió el grado de doctor de enfermería honoris causa por su contribución en la salud mundial, la política, la enfermería y los servicios de salud. Hester además ha trabajado con nosotros en el proyecto RN4CAS desde el principio con los datos que aportaba de Sudáfrica. Es una buena amiga y tiene alguna relación con España que no vamos a... Porque la pobre siempre tiene algún trastorno con nosotros, ahora relativo a su maleta, pero yo le tengo que agradecer que a pesar de todo y de esa mala suerte siga colaborando con nosotros, siga siendo nuestra amiga y siga queriendo participar en nuestros eventos. Muchas gracias, Hester.
Well, good morning. I'm very pleased to be here. And if you pardon me, I'm not going to greet in Spanish, because the last time that I tried to do that and used Google Translate, when it was up there, people said, "What?" And I was actually saying people goodbye. So I am very pleased to be here, and I'm extending a happy birthday to the unit and for the achievements of the past 20 years. And I really want to thank Mate for this invitation. And as she has shared, we go back and really worked hard on the RN Forecast project, where South Africa was part of the European Union project in terms of looking at the forecasting of workforce, specifically in nursing. So what I thought to share with you today is to just give in a very short nutshell what STTI is about and how it has grown, then touch upon the global context where we find ourselves, the contribution that we've made towards trying to get an understanding of what global health, global nursing, global health research is about, because that's where we see ourselves continue playing an important role for the future. I will share some of the STTI initiatives in terms of building capacity in research globally, and then also end with considerations for the future, but on a broader basis in terms of where one would think that nursing research needs to go. So let me start off by saying that STTI's mission is about advancing world health and celebrating nursing excellence in scholarship, leadership, and service. And the scholarship part specifically then relates to research and building that capacity across the globe. The strategic plan specifically speaks to 4 important strategic goals, and I want to highlight the one that speaks to leading, promoting, and celebrating nursing scholarship, leadership, and service. And that's most probably the area that STTI has become known for around the world in terms of building capacity in scholarship as well as in leadership. So what we've seen is that this organization has started in now I think it's 95 years ago, and in 1922 at Indiana University, and has now grown to more than 520 chapters around the world. in more than 92 countries and at any given point with 135,000 active members. And I was very honored to be the president from 2013 to 2015 of the organization. So let me share with you the global context and what we see as I want to say a new dispensation in terms of the global agenda as it's unfolding. What we see is that there is a continued large scale of inequity around the world. And every time that I try to make sense of some of the statistics is when I go to bed, very warm and very comfortable, I think about the 1 billion people that goes to bed in a slum area. Of the 1 billion people who goes to bed who did not eat that day. And I think that tells us about the extent of the inequity that continues around the world. And the challenge that we see, especially with the World Health Assembly, the new resolution adopted once again this year, that speaks to the universal access to health care. Now, very interesting, just as a side remark, not related specifically to research, but that if you look at the document that was accepted, the new Human Resources for Health Plan for 2030, it speaks then specifically to the need to train 15 million nurses in the next 15 years, just to make sure that each and every one on this planet will have access to basic health care. And I think that tells us about the huge demand that is upon nurses for the future. The point that I also want to highlight is the fourth industrial revolution, and it's a term that was coined at the World Economic Forum in Davos this year, talking about the whole technological revolution that's coming our way and that will change healthcare for the future. The new global agenda has moved from the MDGs to the SDGs, which is the Sustainable Development Goals, where one of those goals now relates to health and wellness, which is Goal 3, whereas in the past we've seen 3 to 4 of the goals explicitly speaking to health. That doesn't mean it has disappeared. It means it asks for an integrated approach in terms of healthcare, in terms of the research that we as nurses conduct. Another important aspect that I think is to take note of is what I find, and especially in the continent where I come from, in Africa, is that nurses are often our own worst enemies by saying that we are so different, we are so unique, that nobody really wants to work with us because we are just so unique. And what I think the message should be is about that we are there to contribute towards health. Whatever we do, either it be service or either it be within research. And therefore, within the frame of the social determinants of health, I truly believe that we will make that contribution. We also are aware of the changing shift in terms of the profile diseases around the world, where we see the increase of cancer, ischemic heart diseases, and stroke, and where we see that the communicable diseases is taking less of a stand at the back. So what does this mean in terms of if we say that we want to conduct global health research, and I'm really not going to spend much time on this, I just wanted to highlight it, that part of the work that Sigma Theta Tau has been doing over the last 2 years, we have published a paper in the Journal of Advanced Nursing, and I want to share this as a reference that defines, or we try to define, global health, global nursing, and then the implications for global health research. And most probably to just highlight, and I'm going to skip to the global health research that is embedded within the Bamako call for action on research for health, that speaks specifically then to focus on communicable diseases, the burden of disease, highlighting violence and health, highlighting global mental health, where we often see that, I want to say mental health is almost the forgotten child sometimes within health systems. And then very important, the health system strengthening in order to achieve the SDGs. Already mentioned the NCDs, and then the road traffic injuries that is on the increase. So given this scenario, the scope then for global health research lends itself for collaboration within regions, between different countries, between different parts of the world. And I think this is where nurses can make a huge contribution in understanding evidence across boundaries, where it is then about and cross-national, always based on evidence, and with ultimately promoting and improving health. So let me talk to just 1 minute about the status of research. And I just want to highlight also this in terms of the inequity that we see within nursing research and health research around the world. This graph explains or gives a snapshot of the world of research and development, and it gives some indication of the R&D spending from governments. Now, those one in the blue dots is the BRICS countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and then you will see the yellow dots within the EU. And very impressive. I mean, you will find the dot of Spain there, which is it's quite eminent compared to some of the other larger economies in Europe. Of course, the main contributors remains to be the United States, and then I'm just so pleased to show here right at the bottom end a very small little dot, South Africa, which is the highest producer of research on the continent of Africa. But yet, Africa as a whole, the whole continent, only produces between one document says 1% and another one says we're heading for 2%. So I'm making it between 1% and 2% of the world's research is generated in Africa. And that tells us something is not right if we think about the population and the number of scientists on the continent. So if we then look at the top 40 countries in terms of publications, this is what the scenario looked like. And we see that China and Japan and South Korea is really moving forward, United States. And then once again, looking in the middle, more of the European countries, and very impressive, once again, the prominence of Spain. And if we look at Africa, which is more that the middle and lower income countries, we will see that South Africa is the only, South Africa and Egypt from the continent contributing in terms of publication. Also wanted to share with you the number of researchers involved per million of the population. So, I mean, impressively, Spain, and this comes from the World Bank report, Spain in 2013 had 2,653 researchers. And if you want to compare that to my country, which is South Africa, where it's 364, Zimbabwe 95. And then when we move to the more affluent countries, for example, Finland, looking at 7,482. And I think this just shows us about the inequity that exists in terms of research around the world as well. Wanted to share with you the challenges of research in South Africa that talks that the challenge that we have of nurses not having the I want to say luxury to be a full-time PhD student when 95% of our students are on a part-time basis. The other part that's very worrying for us at universities is the through flow from honours degree right through your PhD. You will see within one cohort in 2010, what we did to look at, there were 22,000 honours moving through, only 10,000 moved to masters, and only 1,200 completed the PhD. And this was for the whole of the country, within that specific tracking of that cohort. So we see that the dropout, the attrition rate is quite high. The average age of a PhD graduate in South Africa is 48. And then we hope to improve the PhD outputs in the next 10 years by 6 to 6,000 for the whole of the country per annum. So let me get to what STTI specifically done in terms of the global agenda. The one aspect that I want to highlight is utilizing the United Nations Economic and Social Council status to influence on a high level some of the policies that we've seen coming through. In 2013, we established what is called the Global Advisory Panel on the Future of Nursing and Midwifery, with the intent to establish a voice and a vision for the future of nursing. Now, what we've done with this initiative is that we have had meetings across the world in all the 7 regions. And what we did was to ask nurses, what are those challenges that we are faced with, and in each and every one of these regions. We've completed all of that work now, and we are ready now to start working with organizations within different regions to actually start some of the research and to build capacity where it's needed based on the data collected. Just for interest, the 4 main areas that nurses around the world see as challenges, first and foremost, is that we are not at the policy level. Secondly, the lack of leadership. The third one was the issues related to workforce, nurses not having good working environments, and the last one is the different challenges and standards that we have in terms of nursing education. STTI has also been one of the first organizations to provide small grants across the world for nurses. And I want to invite you, it's actually open right now for calls, that is available annually, and it varies between $5,000 to $15,000 US. And this is specifically focused at a smaller project where you want to get some data so that you can use that for future research. And there is the link to that. And as noted, that the calls are open till the 1st of December. The other part that we've contributed in terms of building research capacity is through the publications of the 2 journals, and these journals are free for our members. Worldviews on Evidence-Based Nursing, and the other one is Journal of Nursing, and both of these are amongst the top 10 ranked in terms of impact factor. We have the Virginia Henderson Global Nurse e-repository, and I also want to invite you, this is a free service that is provided, where there is, so what happens is the moment that you do your research project, you can actually log onto the e-repository, submit your work, it gets peer-reviewed, and it gets published, and it's open access, free of charge. And the idea is that this e-repository is used so that we build the body of knowledge around the world and that we can share the work across the world. In terms of strengthening research, nursing research, we have deliberately taken the International Research Conference around the globe. And you will see in 2013 it was in Prague, 2014 Hong Kong, 2015 San Juan in Puerto Rico, 2016 Cape Town, and then the call for abstracts is out now for 2017 in Dublin, Ireland. As part of the initiative, we've also hosted research workshops related to some of, or linked to some of these conferences and other regional meetings, and build capacity in terms of scholarship development in different parts of the world. So in terms of considerations for the future, I think the time has most probably come, and especially in low and middle income countries, that the nature of the doctoral degree and research programs needs to work closer together with other healthcare professionals in terms of contributing to interprofessional degrees. And this is a debate I don't want to get into, but I'm going to mention it. And that is that often I find in work around the world that if what works in one country doesn't necessarily work in another. We have seen, as an example in the United States, that a very good development that has worked for the country was the professional doctorate, the D nursing. In countries like South Africa, it won't work at this point in time because we are at the stage where we need to build scientists. And so that debate about that balance between the PhD and the D nursing, I think is an interesting one and will continue to be one for the next couple of years. And then I think the challenge for all of us, the recruitment of younger doctoral and postdoctoral candidates. Another challenge that we have identified through Sigma, as well as other work that we've been doing, is the challenge of having qualified supervisors for supervisory and mentoring research. So we often have a lot of students that's interested in doing PhDs, but not enough people to supervise. And that really asks for a very dedicated building of a research infrastructure for nursing that is funded adequately, and that through this, I believe, moving forward through partnerships and collaboration. And one of the things that I hope we will achieve in working across different countries and different regions is that we can build a network of professors so that we can have these exchanges and really learn from one another, and that there's co-supervision so that we can really build the capacity of nursing research around the world and not only in the developed world. I thank you for this opportunity.